Imagine this scenario. It's chilling, really. A state-of-the-art aircraft, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner.
Known for its safety, yeah.
Exactly. And it suddenly stalls, just moments after takeoff, plummets into a building.
It's not hypothetical,
Now,
unfortunately.
it's what tragically happened on June 12, 2025, near Ahmedabad, India. Air India Flight AI-171. Today, we're doing a deep dive into that devastating event. We've gathered information from, the official investigation reports, news outlets, Wikipedia, People.com, ABC News, The Independent, The Guardian, The Sun, AP News, and the preliminary findings too.
A lot to sift through.
Definitely. And our mission here is to really unpack it all. The specifics of what happened, the aftermath, the investigation, but also what does this tragedy really mean for modern aviation safety?
Yeah.
We want to distill those key nuggets, those insights, so you really understand the core issues.
It's a somber topic, absolutely, but incredibly important, especially considering the 787's history. So this was Flight AI-171, a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner. It left Ahmedabad around 1:38 p.m. local time on June 12th, headed for London Gatwick.
And on board.
242 people total. That's 230 passengers and 12 crew members.
What makes this so incredibly unsettling, I think, is what happened right after takeoff. Minutes after, at only about 600 feet, the aircraft stalled.
Just 600 feet. It's incredibly low altitude for that kind of event.
And then it hit a hostile building at BJ Medical College, a huge fireball. And the thing that immediately sent shockwaves everywhere, this is the first fatal crash of a Boeing 787.
Ever. Since it entered service 16 years ago.
16 years. That's significant.
Yeah.
It instantly raises these urgent questions, doesn't it? About, the safety assumptions we have around these modern jets.
Absolutely. It forces a reconsideration. It's not just a statistic. It challenges the perception of its near-perfect record. You start thinking about potential vulnerabilities you hadn't considered. And the human cost. It's just devastating. The numbers are truly heartbreaking. 241 people on the plane were killed.
Almost everyone.
Almost everyone. And it didn't stop there. At least 38 people on the ground also lost their lives.
Oh.
So the total death toll comes to around 279. It's an immense tragedy.
It really underscores how an air crash, especially near a populated area, has such wide-reaching impact.
Exactly. Affects the whole community, raises questions about preparedness, flight paths near dense areas.
But amid all that devastation, there's this one story, almost unbelievable. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, a 40-year-old British Indian passenger, the sole survivor.
Miraculous is the word often used, and it feels appropriate here.
He was in exit row 11A, apparently emerged with just minor injuries. How is that even possible?
Well, experts suggest the exit row rotation might have played a role. More space, potentially a more structurally sound part of the fuselage in that specific impact scenario. It's speculation at this stage, but plausible.
It's incredible. It really highlights how sometimes design features intended for one thing, like evacuation,
Can have unintended life-saving consequences in the most extreme circumstances. A lesson there, perhaps. But that survival story stands in such stark contrast to the immense loss. You hear about individuals like the British couple, Fiongal, and Jamie Greenlaw Meek, known from This Morning.
Yes, I saw that. Very sad.
They were among those lost, remembered very movingly by their colleagues. It puts faces to the numbers.
It does. And the identification process must be incredibly difficult.
Extremely challenging. They're relying heavily on DNA. As of the 17th, they'd handed over remains of about 76 to 83 victims to their families. It's a slow, painful process.
So with such a terrible outcome, the immediate question, the urgent question for everyone in aviation is how? How could this happen? And the investigation seems to have started very quickly.
Remarkably fast, yes. Both black boxes, the flight data recorder, and the cockpit voice recorder were recovered promptly.
Which is crucial, obviously. That's where the answers usually lie.
Absolutely critical. And what's interesting is the immediate international collaboration. Experts from the UK, the US, and Boeing itself are all involved, helping analyze that data.
And have they indicated anything yet? Any preliminary findings?
Yes, there's significant early indication, something quite startling, actually. They're looking at a rare dual loss of engine power, potentially a catastrophic engine failure right after
A
liftoff.
dual engine failure.
Ah.
On a 787, that sounds almost impossible. Why is that so unusual?
Well, you're right to be surprised. Modern jets like the Dreamliner are designed with massive redundancy. Each engine is largely independent, separate fuel lines, controls, backups. For both to fail simultaneously, it suggests either some shared external factor, like bird strikes affecting both, which seems less likely given the altitude and reported sequence,
Or,
or an unprecedented systemic issue, something that somehow bypassed all those safety layers. That's what makes this finding so, well, alarming for investigators.
and the reaction from authorities was immediate, wasn't it?
Very swift. India grounded other Boeing 787s in the country for urgent checks.
Makes sense. And the timeline for finding out more.
We're expecting a preliminary report within weeks. But the full investigation, that takes time. Months, usually. It's meticulous work, piecing everything together.
Okay, so looking ahead, what's happening right now?
Well, those operational disruptions and inspections are underway. India's aviation regulator ordered checks on all of Air India's 787s, with a particular focus on the GE-powered ones, the planes using General Electric engines, given those early findings about engine power.
And this clearly has international dimensions, too.
Absolutely. The UK government convened a COBRA meeting.
Right, the emergency committee.
Yes, to coordinate the response for the British victims' repatriation, supporting the investigation, all of that. It shows how interconnected global air travel is, especially during a crisis.
So the path forward for safety, what are the likely steps?
It's going to be multifaceted, almost certainly. First, we'll get that full report. Detailed cause, specific safety recommendations, that's key.
And based on that,
You can anticipate potential updates to pilot training, particularly around handling extremely rare emergencies like abnormal engine operations low to the ground. Also, a deep review of engine maintenance protocols seems inevitable,
and maybe even looking at the aircraft certification itself.
quite possibly. Revisiting the processes for the 787 to see if lessons learned here need to be incorporated. It's about closing any potential gaps this event might reveal.
So let's try to wrap this up for now. We've covered the awful details of the Air India crash, the heartbreaking human toll, that single miraculous survival.
And those crucial early findings pointing towards a possible dual-engine failure, something incredibly rare.
Plus the swift response grounding planes, international cooperation, the investigation getting underway.
And, this tragedy, being the first fatal one for the 787, it really forces us to think, not just about the technical side, the aircraft's resilience, but also about that constant tension, that balance between incredibly advanced technology and the need for continuous vigilant safety improvement. These complex systems require constant watching.
It's a balance that gets recalibrated, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Often after events like this.
Precisely.
Which leaves us with a thought, perhaps for you to ponder. In an era where flying is statistically safer than ever, what does an event like AI-171, something so unexpected for this aircraft type, teach us about the nature of unprecedented risk? And how does the global aviation community ensure that confidence, that trust in air travel, remains strong even when the seemingly impossible happens? Something to reflect on.